You don't have to be perfect. If you're anything like me, people have said this to you a lot, and it doesn't help you when people say that. Today, we're going to talk about all or nothing, black and white thinking, why it really happens, and what really works to make a difference and start getting real comfy in that gray area. I'm Anna Wickham, and I help people create a radiant life through passion, purpose, and peace. And today we're going to talk about that black and white thinking or perfectionism. If you're like me, you are either 0 or 1. You're either all or nothing. It's either a fantastic day or it's the worst day ever. You're quick to classify things into different buckets of this is good or this is bad. This can be really detrimental to our lives when we do this, because even if things aren't perfect, seeing the gray area helps us identify the good things that are happening. Whereas if we are quick to say that something is bad, the whole thing is bad, then we're not able to see the good things that might be happening in that because of our need to classify this into the bad file or the bad bucket. Much of the time, things are not perfect and things are not horrible. 99% of life is this somewhere in between. When we are able to identify that gray area and see things more clearly, then we can live more peacefully in the present moment and identify the things that are working really well, even when things are not perfect. All or nothing thinking is a cognitive distortion. And what that means is it seems like it's a clear, accurate reflection of the truth of what's really happening, but in reality, it's not a very clear thought about what's happening out in the world. One of the best things I ever learned was that not every thought I think is true. You may have heard someone say, don't believe every thought that you think. Especially those of us who are prone to black and white thinking, this is great news for us. But how do you get out of thinking in that distortion? Well, the first step of that is to remember that not every thought is true. A second step for that is mindfulness. Having a regular practice of stepping back from your thoughts and watching them float by. Just watching the thoughts and recognizing that we are not our thoughts, but that we are able to separate from our thoughts. That gives us the perspective and the distance to be able to look at our thoughts and to question them. I call that the process of inquiry. Actually, that is a phrase that I borrowed from Byron Katie. So Byron Katie has a process of inquiry that I'm going to talk about later in the video. So stay tuned to hear that process of inquiry, which is a very easy process you can use to question your thoughts. Whenever a thought comes up that seems very black and white, you can get a little distance from it, experience some mindfulness. I see that thought. And then use inquiry to help you see that thought more clearly. All or nothing thinking is a sign of survival mode. Survival mode is an elevated state of our nervous system where we are on guard. We are anxious. We might be ready for something bad to happen. And survival mode is something that we may have learned along the way when we were in states where we felt scared in the past, where we felt that maybe even our safety was at risk or our emotional safety was at risk. Now, if you want to learn more about this, then I recommend my video on nervous system regulation, and it's going to explain a little bit more about what I mean by that. But some of you watching may resonate with what I'm saying already, and you may identify that there were times in your life that put you into a survival state where you had to be hypervigilant to make sure that you were going to stay safe. The problem is, like I explained in that video, we sometimes get stuck in a state of elevated hypervigilance in order to feel like we can survive. We get stuck in survival mode. When we're in survival mode, we need to quickly be able to classify information and stimulus. So something happens outside in the world, we need to quickly judge which bucket to stick it into. Is it a good thing where it's not going to be a threat to us? Or is it a fearful thing, a scary thing, a bad thing. So we want to put it in this bad bucket over here. Whenever we have this state of extremes and we struggle with moderation, we can know that that's a sign that we are in survival mode. What we can do is we can remind ourselves that we are not in a state of survival. We are okay. We are safe. Our body is safe. Our emotions are safe. And therefore, we don't have to be in that state of hypervigilance, of hyper identifying every bit of stimulus that comes into our view. Calm ourselves and remember that we're in the present moment. And in this moment, everything is okay. And it's safe for you to see things clearly as they are. One of the most revolutionary changes that I've made in my life in recent years is prioritizing how I feel over my output and how things look. So you might have heard the quote, "It's more important how my life feels than how my life looks." And this has become a mantra in my life. Many of us, especially you watching this video, you may have grown up believing and being taught otherwise. You may have been taught that outcome was the most important thing, that you needed to get those good grades, that you needed to impress other people, that we needed to have a good impression on other people and what they thought about us, that we needed to achieve and perform. And if you grew up thinking that way, then you most likely put more and more and more and more emphasis on the output, regardless of how you felt. If you've grown up in a situation like that, then you may not have understood the message that you are acceptable and perfect just the way you are. That your value and your worth does not depend on your achievements, on your output, on making sure everything goes according to plan. That is not your source of being okay. And that is not your source of being enough. When you start to fully, viscerally understand that process, then things start to be okay. And it's okay for things not to go exactly as planned. And it's okay for things to be in the gray area. As we become adults, then we have the opportunity and the responsibility to parent ourselves. No matter what kind of upbringing or childhood you may have had around performance or achievement or output, we now are the parents of ourselves when we're adults. So what that looks like is showing yourself compassion. And remember, it's not other people's responsibility to value how you feel over the outcome. For example, your boss might not value how you feel over the outcome, or others in your life might not. But you have the chance to decide that for yourself. Parenting or reparenting yourself can look like this. It can say, "Hey, Anna, I saw what you did in there. I know you worked hard on that presentation. And regardless of the output, I am so proud of how you've grown in this process, all you've learned, and I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself in the process and not overworking or overextending yourself." So that's how you can learn to talk to yourself with compassion, even when things aren't going well. Let's say you're having a bad day and you're feeling prone to label the day as a bad day and say, "This is just a bad day, nothing's going right today, and therefore nothing's going to go right for the rest of the day." You can say, "Oh, Anna, I'm so sorry that these things have happened, and I recognize that these were hard events, but you got through them. Now, Anna, let's not let this activity that already happened in the past make us reflect that onto the future, because we don't actually know how the rest of the day might be. Things can turn around like that. We don't claim to know the future based on the past, and I keep my mindset neutral and open to all the possibilities that might happen today." So here are my tips to help you identify this black and white thinking and come to more gray area, seeing things as they are in moderation. 1, Remember when it hits you, the black and white thinking was a taught behavior. This may have been something you saw modeled in other people, and you may have not been given the skills to help you identify moderation and gray. Remember that this is often tied to a survival mode, so you can look at how you're handling the situation and say, do I feel like my being okay is dependent on this output? And is that causing me to put pressure on this to either be good or be bad? You can also remember that this is a cognitive distortion because very little in life are things actually all good or all bad. Most of the time, they're in the gray. So if we're seeing things in all good or all bad, we can remember that not all the thoughts that we think are true and help us question our thoughts and help us identify how things might be better than we think that they are. Next, you can use Byron Katie's 4 questions for inquiry. Here are the 4 questions for you to look into more later. 1, is it true? So you develop a statement and then you say, is this true? Step 2, question 2 is, can I know that this is true? So say, for example, you think, I'm going to get fired from my job. Question 1, is this true? Yes, I think it's true for sure. Question 2, can you know that it's true? Well, you can't because it's in the future. So you don't know the future. So already that starts to, okay, maybe that wasn't quite as true as I thought. Step 3, question 3, how do you feel when you believe that this is true? Oh, well, I feel hopeless. I feel desperate. I feel scared. I feel stressed. Okay, you don't have to change the feeling. Just identify how it makes you feel. Step 4, question 4, how would I feel without this thought? This helps you get some distance from the thought and remember that you and the thought are not the same. You and the thought are separate things. So you can get some distance from the thought and think, how would I feel without this thought? Oh, I might be having a really good day. I'd be feeling carefree. I'd probably be feeling pretty happy. So use inquiry to help you just get that little bit of distance from that thought, just enough to help you realize that, I think maybe it's not quite as bad as I think here. Next, work on developing a self that is 100% worthy regardless of the outcome, regardless of how big you mess up or how many mistakes are in your past or what kinds of things you may have done. Develop a self and understand that there is a self inside there who is 100% valuable and worthy, regardless of whether you achieve a lot or achieve absolutely nothing. Your value and your worth is unaffected. And when you've cultivated this belief, it really takes the pressure off of you to perform perfectly. Next, focus on how you feel. Bring the focus from the output of a project or something to how does it make you feel when you're doing it? Do you feel passionate? Do you feel like you're in flow? Did you enjoy it? Were you having fun? And shift to making that the focus of your life. Your focus of your life is to be in alignment and to feel good. When you're feeling good, number 1, you will have often good outcomes because you're aligned, you're enjoying yourself, and you're feeling good. But second, you will start to put less and less emphasis on the outcome. And it won't matter so much to you how things turn out. It could even be something like whether or not you're able to make your 6 o'clock dinner reservation. Things don't have to turn out perfectly for things to be okay. Next, develop a practice of doing some things just because you enjoy them. This will help you with that new connection of, oh, it matters how I feel, not so much the outcome. So one example of this in my life is I grew up playing piano. And at first I really loved piano. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. But after a while, I started getting good. I started getting attention from other people and I started to perform. I started getting competitive with it. It really took all the fun out of it when I was focusing on the output of I have to perform well, I have to impress other people. I have to win this competition, whatever it was. And I was so focused on the outcome that I forgot to just enjoy what I was doing. So it's really difficult to change your expectation of the outcome. That's why when people say, oh, it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't really help us that much, does it? But what does help is shifting our focus from the outcome to how it feels when we're doing it. And remember that your goal in life is to just feel good and enjoy what you're doing and be happy. My next tip is to practice identifying the gray. So whenever you catch yourself looking at all black thinking, all white thinking, all good, all bad, all or nothing, practice finding something that is different. So if you've decided something is all bad, then identify something good in it. So let's say you think you've done horrible on a project. Well, what didn't go horrible? What parts of it did well? This will build so much resilience in you, and it will encourage you to keep going. Even if you feel like you've had a failure, you can identify something that's going well. So, well, yeah, that presentation was kind of botched, but this section of it, this was the best we've ever done it. Or if you think that something is perfect, oh, it's just the most perfect day, maybe you can identify something that wasn't perfect in that day, and not to put you in a bad mood, but to help train your brain that things are often not in the extreme. So even when you're identifying a day that's the perfect day, you're not seeing that day clearly if you've identified it as perfect. It's better to see that day as it really is, in its imperfection, because that's where the beauty lies. If you're having trouble identifying something that's on the other end of the spectrum within something you've identified, ask a friend to help you. A friend can help you maybe identify that more easily than if you try to do it yourself. I have an audio training called How to Find More Passion and Fulfillment in Your Life Right Now. And this can help you start getting into the habit of focusing on how you feel as you move through your day rather than the output of things. You can download that audio training for free at annawickham.com/audio-training. That's annawickham.com/audio-training, and you can get that download now. I think it's a great supplement to what we've been talking about together today. So I will see you guys next time.